none of this should be happening. They should be a family. They shouldn't have died.
Couldn't have imagined a worse scenario for one family. Tragedy struck one family again in less than a week. Just days after a 20-year-old was shot and killed in her sleep, her father was shot to death the night of her vigil. We'll tell you how it all unfolded.
And we've got the very latest update and track on Tropical Storm Beta. I'm going to share that with you in just a little bit.
And Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg has died after a battle with cancer. We're taking a closer look at her amazing legacy coming up.
Good Saturday morning, everybody. I'm Erica Simon. We appreciate you starting your day with us.
I'm Stephen Romo. Thanks for joining us. As of an hour ago, voluntary evacuations have been issued for parts of Galveston County. ABC 13 reporter Micah Hatfield is breaking down what that means. But first, let's check in with meteorologist Kevin Roth. And Kevin, we were hearing about that update you just got from the National Hurricane Center.
Yeah, this is the latest track. This is the latest statistics on exactly what it is doing now and what we expect it will do. Now, I'd say no significant changes here, but we're starting to see some subtle changes that mean big things in the long run. Included in that is that shift to the northwest, finally. And if you look here, you'll notice that westerly jog. That's what we've been waiting for. So the turn is beginning, and that will continue to move off to the west. Pressure has dropped just a bit, down to 994 millibars. It was 995 just prior to that update. Maximum wind still 60 miles per hour. As it gets out of this environment with this strong shear over the next day or two, this still is expected to strengthen into a hurricane. Now, because of that, we still do have a hurricane watch that is in effect, and that goes all the way up to High Island. All of these areas here that you're seeing shaded in purple. We also still have that storm surge watch. Latest storm surge number still at 2 to 4 feet for our area. So nothing has changed there. The very latest track is bringing it just a little bit farther to the north, and that would mean slightly more impacts in our area, especially farther south and for our coastal communities. Notice strengthening into a hurricane here likely late on Sunday or early Monday. And here's the biggest change that I've seen. Now, remember, we don't just want to focus on the center of that track, but the center right now is over land, and that would make for a more weakened storm. It would also put the center of circulation right on top of Houston, which would bring us, at this point, tropical storm force winds and what looks to be high-end tropical storm force winds by Wednesday. Talking 70-mile-per-hour winds. If this moves farther inland, it could weaken more. There still also is the potential that it doesn't move that far inland, stays further off the coast, and we don't see as direct of impacts. But right now, I would say that this ups our probability of seeing some of those tropical storm force winds. Could see that as early as Sunday from those outer bands, but it looks like that main event here is going to be happening Tuesday and into Wednesday as it starts to make its turn and lift off to the north and east. More details of the latest numbers on rainfall totals and tropical storm force wind probabilities, all of that coming up in just a bit.
All right, thanks, Kevin. Well, like Kevin said, the time is now to prepare for the storm.
Meanwhile, those voluntary evacuations now in effect this morning for parts of Galveston County. ABC 13 reporter Micah Hatfield is there. And Micah, the county judge just signing a disaster declaration?
Hey, good morning, Stephen and Erica. He did. And even though he signed that disaster declaration just before coming in and speaking with us about an hour ago, he didn't paint a picture of mass destruction from Tropical Storm Beta. He says the storm likely won't sit and just dump rain on the area. He says it likely won't pose a significant threat to life or to the power grids, but he did still issue a voluntary evacuation order this morning. Take a look at your screen and you'll see those areas that have voluntary evacuation orders right now. Judge Henry says the wind is supposed to be just 35 miles per hour, according to the data that he's been looking at. So why the voluntary evacuations? Well, for the Bolivar Peninsula, he says Highway 87 will have water on it. He's not sure how much and if it'll be passable, but that's only one of two ways to get to Bolivar. The other is the ferry, which was shut down ahead of Hurricane Laura a few weeks ago. Judge Henry says the state's criteria to shut down the ferry will likely be met at some point. So if you're on the peninsula, you could get stuck there. And if you do plan to stay, you should be prepared with 3 days worth of food and your medication if you do choose to stay.
We don't anticipate any need for mass evacuation. The highest forecast winds that I have seen are 35 miles an hour. That's just a really good thunderstorm. And the highest rainfall totals I have seen decreased. Yesterday it was 15 inches probable, and now it's 15 inches potentially, and it's 10 inches probable. So they've even decreased the amount of freshwater rainfall.
We did catch up with a few people this morning who went to Galveston knowing that a storm is approaching. Some were out there to fish, others were just out there to watch the sunrise. But they told us right before a storm can sometimes be the best time.
Yeah, we're from Houston and we just wanted to come down and see the sunrise. My wife loves the sunrise.
And so the sunrise today is a little different, isn't it?
It is a little different with the storm coming. We sure know that.
I just like moving water. It just, I mean, fish can't lay still if the water's moving, you know? So yeah, we're excited.
So
it's gonna be a little rough, but.
Judge Henry told us that areas that have flooded in the past will likely flood again, so you should be prepared for that. He says his policy is only as good as the forecast, and right now it's tough to get a good read on Tropical Storm Beta, so he says they're going to continue monitoring this storm and will likely provide another update tomorrow afternoon. Live in Galveston County, Micah Hatfield, ABC 13 Eyewitness News.
Micah, thanks. Remember, hurricane season ends at the end of November, but it's never too early to start preparing for what might come this hurricane season. Now, all of this can be done in just a couple of hours. Clean up your yard, pick up any debris in it and around it, clean out the drains and gutters. That helps prevent flooding. Check for any trees that have branches that need to be trimmed back. And this is very important. Do a quick video walkthrough of your home just in case you ever need to file an insurance claim.
All right, well, continuing to follow some shocking breaking news from overnight. This is out of Northwest Harris County, where Michael Rod has been shot and killed. He was the father of Sierra Rod. You may remember Sierra was the 20-year-old who was killed last weekend when gunmen fired into her family's home in Cypress. ABC 13 interviewed Michael Rod several times in recent days. Well, another family tragedy happened at a vigil for Sierra last night at her grandparents' home on Thornleaf near Canyon Rose. Here's what we know right now. Around 11, the sheriff's office says there was some type of fight between Michael Rod and his 74-year-old father-in-law. That's when the father-in-law shot Michael, according to witnesses there. They told deputies it was out of self-defense. Michael died on the scene.
Just losing Mike, it's not right. None of this is right. None of this should be happening. They should be a family like they've always been. They should both be here.
We know that this entire family has been grieving a terrible loss for the better part of a week now, and this is just another tragic turn for them.
The sheriff's office tells ABC 13 they're going to continue interviewing witnesses and collecting evidence from the scene. They'll then send all of those details to the district attorney's office, which will determine whether or not to file charges.
People all across the country are coming together to remember and mourn the death of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. This is video from the Supreme Court steps just hours after the news was announced. But how did Justice Ginsburg become a cultural icon? ABC's Rachel Scott explains.
At just 5'1", Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a liberal giant, a political force unexpectedly turned pop culture icon.
It is beyond extraordinary that I am nearly 84 years old and everyone wants to take a picture with me.
Her image larger than life. Those frilly lace collars and oversized glasses plastered on t-shirts, posters, even tattooed on arms. And on Halloween, parents dressing their kids as Ruth Baby Ginsburgs.
Can't get rid of me.
Her initials became an internet sensation, Notorious RBG.
People ask me, don't you feel uncomfortable being with a name like the Notorious B.I.G.? Why should I feel uncomfortable? We have a lot in common.
She rarely missed a day on the bench.
10, 9, 8.
Or at the gym, still sticking to those workouts after receiving radiation for a pancreatic tumor. Her pioneering rise to become the court's second female justice, celebrated on the big screen.
You don't get to tell me when to quit.
It was that tireless fight for equal rights and those pointed words, I dissent, that inspired a generation.
Her very example of being somebody who was unflaggingly committed to her job and to the cause of equality and justice, she had millions of people who looked up to her. Millions of people looked up to Justice Ginsburg for being such a champion for equality, both on the bench and off.
And this morning, Ruth Bader Ginsburg remembered just as she hoped.
How do you most want to be remembered?
As someone who did the best she could with whatever talent she had to make things a little better for people less fortunate, to move society along a democratic path.
Tributes across the country are pouring in. Harris County Judge Lena Hidalgo wrote, quote, "She embodied pure bravery and an unflinching belief in our country's potential. For women, she was a symbol of promise and a fighter for what we know we can achieve."
Meanwhile, Governor Greg Abbott also sharing his condolences, releasing a statement saying in part, quote, "My heart goes out to Ruth Bader Ginsburg's family, and Cecilia and I are keeping them in our prayers. Justice Ginsburg was a trailblazer of keen intellect and will be remembered as a judicial giant. She put service above self and leaves behind a grateful nation." Governor Abbott has also ordered all Texas flags to be lowered to honor the life and legacy of Justice Ginsburg.
Let's get you caught up on the latest in the COVID-19 pandemic. The city of Houston is reporting 316 new cases as of yesterday afternoon. The total number of confirmed cases in the city is now more than 70,000. But the good news is more than 55,000 people in Houston have recovered.
Well, parents, if you have a child in HISD, you're going to want to listen up to this. Starting Monday, you can make your selection to decide if you want your kids to continue through with virtual learning or if you want them to go back to school in person. A big decision for a lot of families. You have until Friday to choose. Students whose parents don't make a pick will automatically be selected for in-person learning when it becomes available starting on October 19th. You can make that decision on the district's website.
College football is back, and ABC 13 is the place to be to get your fix. First up at 11 is the Navy taking on Tulane. Then at 2:30, it's UCF, the University of Central Florida versus Georgia Tech. The primetime matchup at 6:30, the Miami Hurricanes battling it out against the Louisville Cardinals. We'll be right back. All right, all eyes are on the Gulf as Texas is getting ready for Tropical Storm Beta.
Yeah, let's take another live look from Galveston this morning. You can see the surf is pretty rough out there. We saw our Micah Hatfield in the area. Lots of wind already blowing through there. Let's check in with meteorologist Kevin Roth. You've been getting updates all morning, Kevin.
Yeah, the surf is picking up. Those rip currents are going to be a big issue. Certainly, you do not want to be out in the water here, even though at this point, the storm hasn't arrived yet, but already starting to whip up those waters. Now, I did just get a chance to go through the entire forecast discussion from the National Hurricane Center. A couple things standing out to me. No major differences, but a few things worth noting. Of course, first and foremost, that wind shift here, the movement out of the north and west means we're finally making that left-hand turn that we've been waiting for. Also, as I mentioned earlier, now expecting a landfall near Matagorda Bay. If you look at the center of that track, once this storm makes landfall, it would gradually weaken. So that is better off. That'd be a better option than if it stalls off of the coast and then just parallels the shoreline over the water. That would keep the storm from weakening. So that would be a concern. It making landfall would certainly help to weaken that. One thing that really stood out to me here, and I'm going to read this from the National Hurricane Center discussion, that the forecast is well above consensus model guidance and additional downward adjustments may be needed later today. And what that means is that the intensity forecast, specifically the fact that it is forecast to be a hurricane, is not in agreement with what models are seeing right now. Because of the dry air in place, because of the shear that we've been talking about, there is a decent probability that this does not reach hurricane strength. That is still the forecast from the National Hurricane Center. So that is still what we're going under the assumption will happen. But models starting to show that we may not reach that point. We may not reach that intensity. Either way, the impacts to us, not a huge difference. Whether it's 75 miles per hour, which is the current forecast, that would be hurricane, or 70, which would be tropical storm strength, the threats in our area remain the same. We've got the gusty winds, we've got the storm surge, and of course, the inland flooding and rain potential. So let's talk about that with Future Track. For today, it remains mostly quiet until late tonight. That's when some rain moves into our coastal communities. Sunday, already showers and storms pretty much area-wide. That will start early on Sunday, continuing through the day. This storm making landfall likely around Matagorda Bay or stalling out in the vicinity, but you'll notice by Monday, still dealing with those rains. Tuesday starts to make its way towards our area as that center of circulation moves over southeast Texas. That is when we would likely see the highest winds. Rain still ongoing here Tuesday, even into Wednesday as we get around that wraparound moisture. Rainfall totals here for our coastal communities could be 5 to 10 inches or more. So obviously that flooding is a threat. Even inland, Houston areas could see up to 5 inches of rain. We're going to look more at that coming up in just a bit.
All right, Kevin, thanks. Well, here in southeast Texas, we know just how much destruction can come from hurricanes. That is an understatement, especially when you consider all of the flooding. We've lived it during Hurricane Harvey 3 years ago. This video from the days after that storm. Well, right now, over on our connected apps like Roku and Fire TV, you can check out the Weather Vault. There, you can look back at other big storms that destroyed parts of the Gulf Coast, like Tropical Storm Allison, Hurricane Harvey, of course. You can check that out now. We'll be back after this.
Well, this week, ABC 13 Plus shared the stories of people, businesses, and hidden gems in Houston's East End.
Yeah, gotta love the East End. And to help you visualize just where all of this is, it covers these 6 zip codes from 77003 to 77029. You see it there on that map. ABC 13 community journalist Chaz Miller caught up with a businessman who has lived in that vibrant neighborhood for more than 2 decades. Here are some of his favorite spots.
So this is it. This is the spot. This is La Esquina. It's on the corner of Harrisburg and Hunt, and it's one of my favorite spots.
So we started La Esquina about a year ago. It just took off, and we've been really blessed to be in such an amazing community that really accepts us.
I get a flour tortilla with bistec and beans. I'll just get what he had.
We have breakfast tacos all the way to homemade gorditas, tortas, burritos, quesadillas.
It's fantastic. It's still kind of early. Let's go get caffeinated. They say you got a coffee shop in the neighborhood you like.
We have just like great coffee shops, independent shops, like this place.
Shayla Roasters is really unique. We're a modern roastery, and we focus on really high-end, really specialty lots, as well as the everyday coffee for our community here in the 2nd Ward.
So one thing cool here, they gave you the coffee in this box, which obviously happened because of the pandemic.
Once we installed the box in February, we realized this is the way to go, and we just went 100 miles per hour in that direction.
So you're gonna go show me your new studio space?
Yep. It's actually under construction right now. This is a 15,000 square foot building for our company, The Story Hive. We do a little bit of everything, anything that's video.
I can't envision you having a workspace anywhere but the East End.
I couldn't imagine it, no.
Why don't we leave here and go get some lunch before we end the day?
That sounds good. I got a perfect place right down the street from here.
All right, let's go.
All right, let's go.
Moon Tower Inn.
We opened in September of 2010. We started out selling the wild game sausage hot dogs. Over the years, that's really grown, and then we've added, burgers after that, and tacos at this point, and sandwiches.
Any day that ends with a hot dog is a good day, right?
Yes, it is.
I'll take those hot dogs over those tacos over those hot dogs, but still great food out in the East End.
Yeah, I used to live in 2nd Ward when I first moved to Houston. Great area for sure.
Great area, great food. All right, let's check in with meteorologist Kevin Roth. You're not eating tacos over there. You're a busy man over there, Kevin.
Yeah, it's great weather for now, but things really going downhill here tomorrow. One last look here at that track, and I want to talk about the 4 threats. One is storm surge, could see 2 to 4 feet. We also have tropical storm force winds to worry about. inland flooding, which means freshwater flooding just from the amount of rain from the system sitting over us. And then last is tornadoes. Don't forget, these tropical systems can spin up tornadoes and likely will spin up tornadoes. So we have to be prepared for all of those threats, the storm surge, the winds, the flooding, and the tornadoes here in the coming days. Impacts start as early as tomorrow, guys, so be ready.
All right.
Okay, we're still in the height of hurricane season. We can't let our guard down, that's for sure.
All right, Kevin, thanks. Thank you all for joining us.
We'll see you tomorrow dark and early at 6 a.m.
Stay tuned for Saturday Extra.